afternoon, everybody. My name is Dora Tienza Washington. I'm a Community Services Manager for the City of San Pablo, and we'd like to welcome you all to the first pre-proposal meeting for the San Pablo Community Grant Foundation for fiscal year 25-26. So we're releasing it this spring, and this implementation for next fiscal year. I'm going to pull up our slide deck, which also will be available on the website. And we'll be going over this, and we'll be spending quite a bit of time on the application because it's a little bit different than it has been in previous years. So this is an outline of what we're going to go over today. First is an overview, spending time on eligibility. We're going to spend a chunk of time around application walkthrough, and then ending with a process, reviewing our process and timeline of key dates. People can submit questions under the question and answer function on the bottom of the Zoom at any time. Depending on time, we may not have time to answer questions, but we will be posting answers to those questions on the website this Friday for any questions that we've received through email. And during this webinar, as a note, we're only accepting questions through email this year. So please don't call or send an email that's not on our official email. So we might lose it. So we're trying to be really diligent about getting back to people. So my colleague will drop that email on the chat, and you should be able to see that, or that's also on our website. So first of all, I wanted to be able to talk about where our funding comes from. These are our funders of this grant, with a chunk of it coming from the City of San Pablo through our City Council, our Lytton Rancheria Band of Poma Indians, Republic Services. They provide the funds that go to our environmental part of our grant, and then also our San Pablo Senior Advisory Board. All of these folks and partners collaborate to provide for this annual grant. And our program purpose is to provide one-time financial assistance to different programs, services, or events that's happening in the community. And it's primarily to benefit San Pablo residents of Incorporated San Pablo. And it should be supporting our City Council major goals and priorities. And we will be saving this deck also on the website, and you'll see that some of these ones that they will have links to it, and we'll go over what those are. This is just an overview of the city's major policy goals. So you can see those are the ones in the blue circles, including building a healthy community, expanding housing options, enhancing community resilience, public safety, and economic development and diversification. Applicants moving forward will need to identify one of these at minimum one of these policy goals, as well as a priority area and priority goals. And we'll see how that looks like when we go through the application. A quick overview of funding availability and grant awards. We have a total of $100,000 available for the 25-26 grant year. 85,000 of that will be for general programs, activities, and events, and 15,000 of that, as in previous years, will be for environmental programs. The minimum grant amount is 5,000, and the maximum grant amount is 10,000. And applicants can choose any amount between those two minimum and maximum amounts. A requirement of the grant is that the grant expenditures it's serving 75% of San Pablo residents, and there should only be one application per eligible nonprofit organization that's applying. As always, we always mention that the number and amount of final awards, it depends on the amount of eligible applications. That's really key. We're going to talk about what an eligible application means, and a final City Council approval. Eligibility. So as mentioned before, applicants should be a nonprofit organization that's currently registered with the state of California. And a required document is for the applicant to provide a current certificate of status. I'll show you an example of what that looks like. So this is not the IRS letter of nonprofit status, is the California one. Community organizations that are not incorporated as a nonprofit should or can utilize a fiscal sponsor to apply alongside them. And a requirement of that is a current copy of an MOU, a memorandum of understanding or contract between that organization and their fiscal sponsor. So hopefully there's one existing between those two entities. And if not, we're providing a template that can be used instead, which is a contract, which is a template that we'll be providing, and we'll go over that as well. Another thing around eligibility is timely submission of required and completed application documents. It's quite extensive this year. It's not much different than previous years, but we are going to be really tight around timeliness and completion. We're having this grant program be aligned with other grant programs we're having in the city. And so we're just making sure that we're doing our due diligence, both for us as staff reviewing it and for applicants who are interested in getting funding from the city. And we will go over the timeline pretty extensively a little bit later. If an applicant for the 25-26 cycle is also a current grantee for this year, for the 24-25, there's some required reporting that those agencies need to do, both a written narrative that we've already provided to current grantees, as well as a verbal report back to the review committee. So if you're an agency that's a grantee this year and you would like to apply for 25-26, you should have already received that, at least twice have received that notice coming from myself or Greg Dwyer. If you have not, please do reach out to us because those deadlines are coming up. We're going to transition a little bit to the application walkthrough. This is pretty detailed, so hopefully you are submitting your questions and we can hopefully get to later. So for this coming grant application cycle for 25-26, these are all the required documents that appears on this checklist. And all these documents are required for full application eligibility. So for the review committee to review applications, all of these documents must be included. And as a note, unlike previous years, we are no longer accepting paper or hard copy applications. Is quite a big shift that we've done from the past. We are only accepting electronic documents, and we converted all of our documents to be fillable, and it should be submitted in that way. So the first one is a complete application for grant funding. That's one we'll walk through after I go through this checklist. The current organization budget for the organization applying. If you happen to have are co-applying as an organization with a fiscal sponsor, then you'll need two. You'll need both the organization budget and the fiscal sponsor budget. As I mentioned, the current state of California nonprofit corporation certificate of status. I'll show you what that looks like. The current list of the organization's board of directors, a completed W-9 for the applying organization. And if you're using a fiscal sponsor, as I mentioned, a current memorandum of understanding or contract between the two entities, or we are providing a template for statement of fiscal sponsor responsibilities. We prefer having the MOU, but in the case that it's a timing issue, we're okay with getting a completed statement of fiscal sponsor responsibilities. Okay, so we're going to go through the application. And just as a note, if you go to the City of San Pablo website under Community Grant Foundation, you should see all these documents there as well. We will upload a recording of this as well as the as well, oh, so sorry about that, as well as everything else on there. But you should be able to see all these documents here. This is the application for grant funding. Firstly, I wanted to say, like I had mentioned, that emailed applications is the only way we're accepting it this year. And this is the email you'll be sending it to csdgrants@sanpabloca.gov. This is also the email that you can use to send any questions that you may have around this year's grants. That's the only way we'll accept questions, and we will answer them by posting answers on the website at designated times. So we won't do a one-to-one response. Part of that, we want to make sure that we're researching your questions and the answer to your question very well. And we want to be able to have all the questions, answers that we're providing be available to everybody and to have it be fair in that way. So be mindful about what kind of questions that you're submitting, because we are going to post them on the website. So firstly, for your people's applications, for agency applications, making sure that you are checking off whether you're applying for a general fund category, which is pretty much, it's pretty open, or an environmental program, right? So checking one or the other. If you're applying for two different ones, you should submit two applications. In this section, making sure that you are choosing one of the major policy goals, whichever one you think that your program connects to or supports. So you can choose one or multiple depending on what your program is. And then you can click on this link right here. It says 2325 City of San Pablo Council Priority Work Plan. And I'm going to show you how that looks like. At minimum, this is what it looks like. These are the goals. At minimum, we expect folks to choose at least one goal area and then one priority area. So, for example, if I am a sports program and I look here and, you know, I'm feeling like building a healthy community is something that my program supports, I will click on building a healthy community, and I'll look in here and say, and think about like what best supports that area. Let me look at that. Maybe it's 103, which is improving connections to healthy eating and active living. So we want to see both the number and then the description of the priority, improve connections to healthy living and healthy eating and active living. If it happens that it's too long, that's okay. It's most important that we know which ones that you're connecting to. We're asking folks to do that a couple of times because we want to make sure that what you're choosing is connected. This section is just for general information about the organization applying, including the name, mailing address, contact person, email address, phone. The email address is so important. If you feel like you need to put two on there, put contact information, please do that. We are primarily contacting people through email. Answering whether or not organization is a nonprofit. This corporation, the state of California corporation certificate number. Let me show you what one of those looks like. So if you're providing us with your certificate of status, so this document is required when you submit your application, you'll see the number down here, which is certificate number. See the number on the red down here. But this is both the document and the number that we need as part of your application. If you're working with a fiscal sponsor, we would need that information for them, both the fiscal sponsor certificate as well as their own number. So please make sure that you're filling it in the right location. This is also a new section. We're asking organizations if they've received a previous financial assistance from the city. This includes any grants, sponsorships for events or golf tournament, anything like that, fee waivers for fields, or any other fee waivers for buildings. Sometimes we do that, or we support organizations or schools in other ways. Please put that on here. We're asking for the last 5 years, and put the fiscal year, so you can say in 23, 24, I received event sponsorship for pancake breakfast, as an example, and then putting the amount. Okay. And no need to total that. We just want to get a sense of what support the city has provided the agency. This section is around what agencies are requesting. Again, as a reminder, there's a minimum of $5,000, a $5,000 request, and a maximum of $10,000, and an applicant can choose any amount between those two minimum and maximum numbers. One thing we want to be clear is that our grant is for direct service materials, supplies, consultants, things like that, that go straight to the community. They cannot be used, grant funds cannot be used for capital expenses to help build anything, or anything of the sort, any capital expenses. So please just take a note of that as you consider applying for this grant. These sections is just having applicants think about describing to us what they're proposing. Obviously, the title of your proposed special event, program, or service. What's the purpose of it? What are you trying to get out of it? What is the main why of the event? Right, and then this actual description. What is happening at the event, or program or service? If the service involves a fee, we have done that in the past, support programs that involves a fee. Would like to know what that fee is, or rough idea, and then indicate if San Pablo residents will receive any discount by participating. You really want to know that. Here's another place for applicants to describe how this event supports city goals. In the application, it should have been designated what goals the applicant is choosing, and here's a place to provide more information. For number 10, we want to know how many clients the service is hoping to serve, the target number of clients, and then the target number of San Pablo residents to be served. We also want to know what the rough age range of clients will be. We do have a required return to resource grant criteria that grant expenditures must serve at least 75% San Pablo residents. This is just for date and location. Again, this could be for a single event, for a single one-time event, or for recurring service. So just being clear around what kind of what the duration is and location. And then what your intended outcomes and impacts. So describing basically how will clients benefit from the proposed services. Would like to know the proposed total program cost. So it might be, for example, that the cost of the total program is $15,000, and an application is requesting for $10,000 of that total amount. But we'd like to see the total program cost, and then again, the requested grant budget. In the past, we had had applicants submit their own budget, but we like to have it be more standard. So we're asking applicants to use this form for their requested grants and being able to itemize on here. So you can say, in this, in each of these sections, you can write pretty extensively what you want each expense to be. So the different sections are personnel, so staffing, consultants. So these are people that are not, they may work for this program or service, but they are not employees. So whether a consultant or a vendor. Supplies, and you don't have to get too detailed, but a little bit of detail is appreciated. So don't just put supplies. It could be sports equipment. It could be, if you're doing a cleanup, it could be, cleanup supplies such as brooms and trash bags, things like that. And supplies, when we think about supplies, that's consumable supplies that gets used up and don't, stay around. When we think about equipment, it's things that will last even after your event or service is done. So that could be, if you bought any sort of machinery or you bought uniforms that can be used over and over again, things that can stay over time. And then we put an other section for anything else that you think we should know about. And so these amounts here, being able to put the amounts should total roughly, it should total your requested grant budget. We also want to know, and it's really important for us to know what kind of leveraging you're using around this grant. Are you partnering with other organizations or other funding sources to make this program or service or event work? So we'd like to know what that is. If there's also a revenue source, so if the program or service also generates revenue, you can just say generates revenue and talk about what that means. So we'd just like to see what that looks like. So maybe, again, our theoretical sports program that's worth a total budget of 15,000, you're asking 10. Maybe you have fees that generate $2,500, and then another funder maybe providing another $2,500. We would like to know if it's a secured grant or something that you anticipate or have applied for and not heard back. So please note that on here. Here's another kind of reminder. These are, we had seen that in the beginning as well around required documents. So we're showing you a couple of times as a friendly reminder. And then just letting us know how the organization, if they're chosen to be, they're chosen to be a grantee, how they will acknowledge the city for the services and during the services and activities. And this is just an authorized signature for the organization. So that's the entirety of the application. Again, you can write down your question and answers in the question and answer box, and then we'll get to that. Let's see if we have time to get to that. I wanted to show you all one other thing on the website, which I really encourage people to read, is our grant cycle guidelines package. It pretty much goes through a bunch of the things that I spoke about today, but I wanted to highlight a few things. It's a little bit bigger. Here. So you'll see in this grant guideline package, that we are publishing a selection criteria. So the process is we're going to look at eligible applications, and all eligible applications will be forwarded to our review committee. Once the applications are in the hands of the review committee, they will be looking at applications based on these criteria. So I'll go over them. Return to source provision. Applicants should describe and then, and will be required to demonstrate how the grant will serve at least 75% San Pablo residents. That's 10%. How the proposed program or service will enhance or support the goals and initiatives of the city of San Pablo as it's written in the work plan. So please do reference that in your application as specific as possible. And that's 15 points. Fiscal management and proposed budgets. We will want to be able to see that there's fair and justifiable program costs and leveraging of matching funds. That's the partner piece, and about partner and other funding or, revenue that's creating. That also is kind of tied into collaborations and partnerships. We'd like to see how you are connecting partners, if any, to this service. We really want to see creative and original programming. If it's an existing program and this grant will fund something kind of innovative of an existing program, please do describe that. As you can see at 25 points, that's the most important criteria that the review committee will be looking at. So please take time to describe that. If an applicant feels like there's not enough room in the application form, feel free to add a separate Word document, not too extensive, but please, you can add that as part of the email. Don't drop off anything that's hard copy, but we're okay with that if you feel like the narrative boxes is too short, it's too small for your narrative. And then finally, funding considerations. So both the review committee and city council will take into account applicants' eligibility for other current grants, because we just want to make sure that we are thinking about how city funds are getting dispersed. So that is for 15 points, and that's for a total of 100 points. So this is our selection criteria for the 25-26 grant. And I wanted to focus on another one. Let me just see real quick. Just in case we have some school applicants. So schools located in San Pablo, City San Pablo limits who provide non-school services or after-school programs, or if it's an authorized student organization, are eligible for funding. So they would have to follow all other requirements, including using a 501c3 probably fiscal sponsor to do that. It cannot pay for school day, kind of traditional school activities like classroom services or things like that, but it can work for non-school services, after-school programs, and anything, we will consider things that are proposed by student activity organizations. And those schools that qualify would be Richmond High School, Middle College High School, Dover Elementary, Downer Elementary, Lake Elementary, Riverside Elementary, and Bayview Elementary. I think I got all of them. But all of the San Pablo schools, all the 5 San Pablo elementary schools that incorporated San Pablo, plus Middle College, and Helms Middle School. Helms Middle School, and Middle College High School, and Richmond High School. Make sure there's anything else on here. Another thing is that the application is this year, and the proposed activity can happen anytime between July 1st, 2025, up until June 30th, 2026. But we will be providing the funds ahead of time, sometime in July. So we will, once people are selected, or agencies are selected and approved by the city council, we will work with you to disperse the funds ahead of time before the fiscal year starts, or at the beginning of the fiscal year. We're gonna go back to we talked about the selection criteria. These are some key dates that we have. So we, released the application is already released. Today is this first pre-proposal meeting. There's a second one that's going to be happening next week. Next week on the 25th. That one's in person. It's the same exact meeting. So unless you want to hear this again, this one we're doing is going to be recorded and posted. There's no need to attend. Both of these meetings are optional. But the one that we have next week is going to be in person. Actually, I'm going to use this other one. It's going to be in person at the San Pablo Community Center. And here it says time to be posted on the website. We already know that's going to be from 4 to 5 o'clock. So same time as today, 4 to 5 o'clock on the 25th, which I believe is a Tuesday. Yeah, at the San Pablo Community Center on Road 20. It's co-located at Helms Middle School campus, right? And again, it's an optional meeting. Oh, I forgot to say that any questions we receive through email or anything today, we'll be releasing that. If we receive any, we'll be releasing that on our website this coming Friday. We'll be posting that. We'll have the second pre-proposal meeting. This entire time, people can submit questions through our email. We'll also be collecting questions at that second pre-proposal. Public applicants or the public can submit questions all the way through Monday, March 31st. Any questions? And at 5 p.m. that day, and by April 4th, which is the Friday of that week, we will be posting the answers to those questions. After that, we will no longer be accepting any questions, and we can no longer answer any. So please feel free to submit all the questions that you have. Again, knowing that we will be posting both your questions and our kind of, our resulting kind of answers to that. So be mindful around how you're framing your questions. The submission deadline for grant funding is April 11th at 5 p.m. Again, that is email only. We'll go back and review that real quick. And we will, after we receive all of that, city staff will be reviewing application packets for eligibility, and we will be forwarding any all eligible grant applications for the grant committee to review in mid-May or early May. We haven't quite decided that, or it's going to be open for that. It's an open time that they'll take to rate applications. I believe we decided on the state. I don't want to misspeak, but we will post when this mandatory presentation will be. But regardless, eligible organizations will be contacted by city staff as soon as the grant review committee has reviewed the applications, and we will be contacting eligible applicants to do a short presentations. And this is like 2-minute presentations to the committee, basically a last pitch to them. But by then they would have scored applications. At that time, they will work with city staff after the verbal presentations from applicants. The committee will decide on final recommendations to City Council. The City Council will review them in early June, and we anticipate this dispersing grants in July, early July. Okay. I think that's it. Let me just see if there's any. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Hold on a second. How do I do it? All right. Thank you to my colleagues who have been putting up the different links. Hopefully you all have had a chance to look at that. I do see a couple of Q questions on here, and both of the questions on here are, we'll need to do some research on that, and so we will get back, we'll get back to folks and post those answers by this Friday. We do encourage, as my colleague here put on here, we do encourage people to continue submitting questions to CSD grants at sanpabloca.gov. We hope to be able to post the first round of questions by this Friday. If it's the case where a question or questions are more complicated, we might hold off till the next round, but we're hoping to do that, to turn it around pretty quickly so that people can make some decisions around their application. And then I saw a chat with somebody. Yeah. And then we're waiting on, we're going to have another staff member come on for a couple of minutes to make just a closing for us. But please do keep submitting your questions if you have any. And Greg, if you want to.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Greg Dwyer, Community Services Director for the City of San Pablo. Thank you, Jora and staff, for such a thorough presentation. Before we close out, I know a lot of what Jora went over today is for the upcoming grant cycle, but I just wanted to give one last friendly reminder for this current grant cycle, and I know Jora touched upon this. All existing current grant recipients, I sent out an email on Wednesday, February 26th, that included all necessary information regarding your financial reporting requirements. Please keep in mind those requirements are twofold. The first being the deadline to submit your financial documents for the current grant cycle is Friday, March 28th by 5 p.m. And those must be submitted electronically, and you do so by emailing the information to csdgrants@sanpabloca.gov. All this information is once again in the email that I sent out. And the second part is, please plan on attending our special San Pablo Community Grant Foundation meeting on Wednesday, April 2nd at 5 p.m. to provide a verbal summary of the benefits that your program and our events have provided to the residents of San Pablo. And those will be verbal reports limited to 3 to 5 minutes at the committee's discretion. We usually go down those alphabetically in order, so please be on time. At 5 p.m. is the start time. The meeting will be held in our city council chambers located at 1000 Gateway Avenue. And clearly through this video and other things, we're transitioning to administering these grants all electronically moving forward for a variety of reasons, but staff efficiency and streamlining things are one of the main reasons. So should you have any questions, comments, concerns, or suggestions, like I said, please feel free to also email those to csdgrants@sanpabloca.gov. So Jora, please feel free to add anything that I may have missed there.
No, thank you so much. Again, that's for just current 24-25 grantees. And what Greg mentioned, the process that Greg mentioned is a requirement. So that's, I think that question came up. That is a requirement to apply if you're a current 24-25 grantee that then wants to apply for 25-26. If you're a 24-25 grantee, you should do that anyway. But especially if you want to apply for 25-26, what I just went over. So that is not if you're just a new agency or an old agency that now is coming back to apply. That's not required. The April 2nd meeting is not required for applicants for 25-26.
Correct. And if you are an existing grantee, you would have received all this via email already, but it was just one last friendly reminder. Thank you, Jora.
Thank you so much. That concludes our webinar today. Thank you so much to my colleagues for presenting and also providing this information to us. Again, feel free to continue to submit your questions to csdgrants@sanpabloc.gov. And we are having another pre-proposal meeting, same content next week in person at San Pablo Community Center next to Helms Middle School. Thank you so much, and I hope you guys have a good evening.